Hello and welcome to my live stream all about your Pinterest boards as a business owner. Now, I had a little bit of a hiccup where I couldn't stream from the scheduled live. So I apologize for anyone who's been waiting. I hope that folks will be able to find this other live. I'm sure I'll be getting some DMs about this. But such is the nature of live streaming that sometimes it doesn't work out how we are hoping it will work out. So today's question is all about, or our subject matter for today's live stream is all about your Pinterest board. So as a Pinterest strategist, I often get a lot of questions about your Pinterest account setup, how you can rank higher, get your pins discovered by your ideal audience on the platform. And so I wanted to do a dedicated training all about your Pinterest boards. Now, I'm going to give folks a minute or two to find our live because I had to I'm having to potentially delete the old one. I'm not even sure how I can do that. So I'm going to delete the original scheduled live since I wasn't able to go live that way. And I'm just going to, whoops, I'm going to go in and delete that one. So nobody is waiting there. Sadly, this is again, just sometimes this happens, right? And maybe I can't even do that right now. So what I'm going to focus on is how to get us moving here. I'm going to worry about that other live later. So if you have Pinterest boards that look like your original Pinterest account, maybe you have a board for when you got married, maybe you have a Pinterest board about expecting a little human in your life and you wanted to plan out expecting a baby, this is completely normal that oftentimes when we first begin using social media, or a new platform like Pinterest, because we know it's not quite like social media, it's a little bit different, is that we know that it can become a random collection of inspiration, things that you found inspiring that you want to come back to later, and basically like this like smorgasbord of pins leading to all your diverse passion, interests and passions, but it doesn't necessarily reflect you as a business owner. So what I really want to walk you through today is what kind of Pinterest boards you should be creating as a business owner and how to make them work for you and not against you. I think that a lot of people don't realize how important your Pinterest board names are for your Pinterest growth and your Pinterest success. Now, I've been creating videos all about different aspects of your Pinterest marketing. Some are more beginner friendly, others are more intermediate or advanced. And it just reflects the wide variety of people that I have who come to me looking for a Pinterest expert's opinion or that feedback or advice so that you can really get more out of that platform. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Megan. I often say when I order coffee, that's Megan like Megan. And I'm a Pinterest marketing expert and educator who's been in the space for over 10 years. I've had the privilege of helping thousands of small business owners, creators, household brands, and Pinterest themselves tap into the power of Pinterest. So I'm so lucky. I've been invited to facilitate workshops and trainings by Pinterest themselves in my time as a Pinterest expert. So what does that mean? It means that if they trust me, you should too. You are in very good hands. And we all know there's some really bad, icky marketing advice or digital marketing advice that really can get you in some hot water on Pinterest. So with all that experience, what I do know is that your Pinterest success, your Pinterest growth begins with your Pinterest account. So when I'm saying that, what I'm specifically referring to is your Pinterest account setup and optimization. And if you're here watching, I'd love for you to jump into the chat and let me know what that means to you. So when I say Pinterest boards or Pinterest account, what exactly do you think that means? What am I referring to? And I think that one of my biggest takeaways for you in this particular training this live training. So, the nature of live training, things didn't necessarily start out how we were hoping they would. Is that I want you to understand why your Pinterest boards matter. So, we need to have a high level understanding of the context and the what. So, here's what you need to know: your Pinterest boards are important for Pinterest to understand and index your account, your products, and your pins or posts on Pinterest. So let that sink in. It's important as well for your SEO or Pinterest being able to categorize and understand what type of content you're sharing to the platform. And then, of course, this is all wrapped in to your Pinterest strategy. So, really, when you start to dig into Pinterest marketing strategy, you start to realize there's a lot of things that matter here. Your content matters, your sales funnel matters, your visual designs, the copy that you use. But what we like to really think about when we first start tackling, pardon, tackling, that's not even a real word, start tackling our Pinterest pinning strategy is that we actually want to start with our account. Okay. So Pinterest isn't just a place for cute ideas, recipes, blog posts, and of course, those things are on there, but it's a search engine. So, as a visual search engine, we have to think about how your Pinterest boards fit into that strategy. Okay. So, your Pinterest boards are best thought of as an SEO container. So, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that your boards become these vehicles to be able to organize sort of like into little shoe boxes or buckets how your Pinterest pins, what how they should be distributed. It basically sends a really strong signal to Pinterest as a search based algorithm how to categorize and understand your Pinterest posts. If you're watching this live, I'd love to hear what type of business you have, what if you're using Pinterest, if you're a beginner, if you're more intermediate, and if you have any questions while I'm teaching, I'd also love for you to jump into the chat. I'm just going to take a big sip of tea here. So let's talk about that Pinterest crawler or that Pinterest search technology. So Pinterest reads your board names and the content that you're posting on a board and really uses them to determine what your Pinterest account is about. So think about it. When you're scrolling social media or looking around, we often want to get a quick glance, what kind of content is this account sharing? So whether we're talking about Instagram or a YouTube account, is that we want to know what we can expect there. As humans, it's just like basic human psychology that we kind of like to know, what are we looking at? What can we expect? And we're often asking ourselves, what's in it for me? How can this help me? Is this interesting to me or do I need this? And so what you need to decide or think about is that Pinterest is going to look at your Pinterest boards and decide what type of searches your Pinterest posts or your Pinterest pins should be appearing in. And that is a very top level how Pinterest decides to rank your Pinterest pins. Pretty amazing, right? So we didn't know this before. Like way back in the day, we would often use cutesy names. Actually, even if you go back and look at my own Pinterest account where I have over 125 or 228,000 followers, is that you can see boards from when I just started. And I would use this like silly naming convention called like heart or ideas. And the thing is these were sort of like vague ways. And when the technology wasn't very advanced, it really didn't matter. But what we do know is that yes, you can sort of fumble through and you might have a lot of Pinterest success, but you are capable of so much more if you actually optimize what you're doing and create a bit of a strategy. So, boards help index your pins. Okay. So, what that means is if your pins are vague, confusing, or if you don't have very much content, if you just have a board that you're putting all the content on and it's not named very well, or it's named in like an insider term or named after a product collection, is that or even if it's off topic, Pinterest doesn't know what to do with the content on that board. It doesn't know who should I show it to? Who needs to find these pins? So yesterday I was hosting a coaching call in my signature program Pin Potential, and one of our amazing students said, "Megan, I have this video pin that I pinned in the last week, and I don't know why, but it's been categorized or indexed in terms of the broad category as women's fashion, but it should be categorized as DIY and crafts." So, what we did was we talked about it, and I gave her two very practical, quick ways that she could trigger her pin getting re indexed. So, her pins were showing up in the wrong category. So let's picture that. If you have a pin that's confusing to Pinterest, it will be shown in won't be shown at all because it's not being indexed, or it could be wrongly indexed into the wrong category. So imagine if you were looking for a very particular thing and an irrelevant pin gets shown to you in that search. So in this particular case, it was about quilting and it had been categorized as women's fashion. So if I was searching for summer dresses or women's accessories or a purse, and I saw a pin about quilt sewing patterns, there's a 0% chance I'm going to click on it because it's not relevant to my targeted search. And I just float on, right? I just keep going down in the feed. So, this is how confusing the Pinterest algorithm can really be harmful to your ability to be discovered, to be seen, and why you might be having a lot of zeros. So, we were able to talk about the fact that somehow Pinterest had wrongly assigned, and she had done a lot of the right things, but it had been wrongly indexed, meaning that probably long term no one was going to be able to see that pin. So I gave her two really quick ways to help Pinterest or to trigger that pin being re-indexed so that we were no longer confusing the algorithm. And it only took 4 hours, maybe even less. It was about 4 hours later that she went to check and she was like, "Oh my gosh, my pins are now indexed differently. Thank you so much." If you want to learn what that little trick is or what those two tips are, jump into the chat and maybe I'll create a second video, or if we're still on live, I can share that. So let's talk about what boards to create as a business owner. So now that we've got into the why, about what kind we should be talking about what kinds of boards to actually create. And this is where people often get stuck and they ask for feedback from me. They just want to know, like, I don't know, did I do this right? Did I cover all the broad topics? Did I cover all my more specific niche topics? And you can get stuck in this, like, mindset, weird, like, you don't have the right information. You want someone just to tell you, yep, these look great, or have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? It's often hard when you're not an expert in that thing. I live and breathe Pinterest all day. And so this is very automatic for me. It's very quick because I've seen thousands of Pinterest accounts. So I had somebody reach out to me on another platform who's a digital product seller. And this is what she shared. What boards do I need? So I asked her, well, what do you sell? Because what you sell or what type of content you create will often dictate what type of boards you need. And she shared that she sells Etsy printables, print on demand products, Amazon KDP, and digital products on her Shopify website. So that's a lot of different things, but they're all digital products. Now, I asked her who's her target audience. For us to really know what type of Pinterest boards you should be creating as a business owner, for this specific example, I need to know what niche or industry or category we're going after. So she shared that she creates things for like the wedding industry, funerals, and tools for realtors. So, what I shared was the following. I said, let's just focus on one because if we go into all three, it'll probably be a little bit confusing. So, when we think about weddings, that is a very clear niche and it's a massive opportunity for anyone who's on Pinterest and sells wedding or products related to event planning. So if you quickly search wedding printables on Pinterest, so if you open up Pinterest on your computer or your laptop or even your phone, you hit that search bar where there's the little, what's it called? Like not the eyeglass, the like search symbol. And I want you to search wedding printables, okay? And observe what the guided search bar bubbles are. So I unfortunately couldn't stream using any technology today, but I'm going to pull it up on my screen and just verbally share a little bit about you. So I'm touching that search bar and I'm going to enter wedding printables. And what I'm going to tell you, whoop, I have a spelling mistake. Of course I do, because I always have spelling mistakes, is that in the predicted drop down menu, I'm getting things like, okay, so wedding printables free templates, wedding printables for kids, wedding printables free. Then I'm also getting a list of optimized Pinterest accounts. This is really good for competitor research. But for this particular example, I now am just going to enter it. So I looked at what was in the drop down menu. And then underneath it, we get these colored bubbles. Okay. We call these guided search. Some people call them bubbles, some people call them tiles. And under that, it has different keyword variants that can be added to our root words. So our root words are wedding printables. I also see free templates, happy, table numbers, U tag, kids, topper, happy, money envelope, stickers, games, cake topper, Indian, reserved. You can see that there are so many different ways that we can take this from a short tail keyword to a longer one. And this really represents that variety. Where people are searching very broadly for a term, but then they have specific needs. And this is where Pinterest, through guided search, will guide users to find different types of content that is the most relevant to them. Okay. So using that, I already mentioned, like, we have common ones like cake toppers, table numbers, stickers, thank you tags, free printables. But I want you to note that if it says free. So free is a top search term, but this doesn't work for somebody who's a product seller. You don't necessarily want to attract people who aren't going to pay you for your thing. So I want you to skip that. Next up, we have another free tool that Pinterest offers to its folks. I'm just going to bring that up for myself again. And that is under, if you have a Pinterest for Business account, when you open up or log in on your desktop, underneath the Analyze Performance category, you will have the Pinterest Trends feature. And this is a free research tool where you can see historically what sort of keyword popularity different phrases have, but also where it's about to go. And this can give you some really good ideas for seasonal ideas, upcoming trends. I was just doing research for a student in my course, Pin Potential, and she is creating content right now for her content from last summer. That's summer themed. Okay. So I'm not going to necessarily, we don't even need to know what niche or industry she is. And so I was able to look up that in her industry, that particular thing that she's creating content for, which is a pattern in if a summer related pattern is actually about to peak next week. So we are in the first week of August, and I said, or pardon me, April, and I said, you have about 9 days before that particular search term is going to peak. Now, there's still, pardon me, search volume that happens after that, but it's really important to note that, because if you have something, if you're pushing out your summer content in, say, June, you've kind of missed the boat. Pinterest typically happens like the search volume starts to pick up 3 to 4 to 5 months before the actual holiday season or event that is on the calendar. We also see trending topics. So there'll be certain things that just like, maybe it's a particular cultural thing. I know cottage core was really big last year, or search volume for road trips went up during COVID. So there are things that are related to like something that's happening right now. I prefer to focus on seasonal things that all come back every year. So every spring, you as a product seller can share your upcoming summer based products, content from the previous year, and Pinterest will breathe new life into it. So if we are jumping into the Pinterest Trends tool, you can start a broad search for the word wedding, and it will give you core interest areas as well as seasonal things. So if I go in and I do that right now, I'm going to just put in wedding. Now, weddings are popular throughout the year, but we can see that like different people, it actually peaks on January 6th, which is so funny. That's because so many people get engaged. But I also just want to hold on. I'm going to look up, I think actually event planning. Oh, no, I'm not gonna do event weddings are their own category on Pinterest. So if I put in the interest weddings in the Pinterest trends tool, you can toggle between trend types. So top monthly trends, top yearly trends, growing trends, and seasonal trends. So if we look at growing trends, that tends to be things that are just hot right now. So to give you example, future wedding plans, date planning inspo, wedding decor inspo. These seem pretty evergreen to me, but they might be things that are more related to that, might not be exist next year. Now, if we look at top monthly trends for the weddings, it's very similar actually, and there's some other ones: wedding dresses, engagement rings, engagement photos. Now, let's look at seasonal. So, seasonal will tend to look at like here, I don't know why this is categorized under wedding, but proms, garden party, garden engagement pictures. You can see it's sort of related to like, spring and gardening. Now, if we look at top yearly trends, this is really for evergreen power: wedding dresses, engagement rings, wedding ideas, future wedding plans. We saw that on the other one, wedding hairstyles. You can see that they're pretty broad in terms of the area. So that can be really, really helpful for thinking about what sort of ideas you could be looking at. Now, if you look up individual printable types, things that come up related to wedding are wedding menus, seating charts, vow books. And then what we want to think about is that these related keywords can help give us direction for how we name our Pinterest boards for this specific wedding example. Now, if we want to really think about how we take that from like, okay, that's our research, how do we take that to becoming a Pinterest board? Let me just give you some board ideas that I told Jessica. So I told these were for a digital wedding product seller, and these were some ideas that I gave her. Okay. And it'll just give you like a jumping off point that as a business owner, this is the type of board ideas or board names that will help get your products or your content discovered: DIY wedding decor, printable wedding signs, wedding seating chart ideas. Okay. Boho wedding inspiration. We know that people search for the words inspiration, tutorial, ideas, how to. When you think about search marketing, and I tend to, because I specialize in Pinterest marketing, I have a deep level of expertise about how all these different things affect your rank, your authority, your domain authority. And they're all interconnected if you didn't realize that. So YouTube sends search signals to Google. Google also gets signals from Pinterest. TikTok is starting to emerge, even Instagram. And so the way that you're optimizing for your audience for people to discover your products is really important for your overall authority when it comes to SEO or search in general. So also, whimsical wedding themes, wedding cake toppers. These are all just ideas. Forest wedding ideas. Now, obviously, I don't know what the theme or sort of style of the printable she creates are, but you want to just remember that like people are actively searching in a very, very simple way for the broad categories. So each of these names matches search behavior on Pinterest, and they're broad enough in their name that you can pin multiple products, blog posts, and even if you have a sister company or other wedding vendors that that you're friends with, that's complementary to your work, you can share it. And this really aligns with Jessica's ideal customer journey. And actually, I believe I actually have a video, and it might be a little bit older, but I promise you, when I create most content, it's not something that's going to expire. So I created a video back in 2021 about the customer journey for your Pinterest audience, because most people really struggle to create content that actually attracts and resonates with your ideal audience on Pinterest because you don't realize it. But a lot of the content you're creating is for engagement on a different platform. So when you come to Pinterest with creating content with the sort of your Instagram follower in mind or your Facebook follower, your email subscriber, it's a little bit different. The thing on Pinterest is that every person, they don't know who you are. Actually, I heard a really funny thing yesterday on Threads where somebody said, "Are podcast intros out?" Like, I don't wanna listen to them, and what's really funny, and I'm not, no hate to the person that said that, but I wanna put this in your ear, and what I'm always gonna promise is that when you watch one of my videos or when you're learning with me, you're always gonna learn something new that's related to Pinterest, but not just about Pinterest, and this is really when you dedicate resources to Pinterest, I promise you, your entire content marketing ecosystem will improve, okay? Pinterest has that effect. We should call it the Pinterest effect. I'm going to create a carousel about that and share it across my social media. So here's the thing is that this person was saying, like, why would you have an intro? And it's so strange to me that I get that a very long winded intro for someone who has subscribed to your podcast for years, they probably skip it. But what about the person who doesn't know you? What about if that podcast episode is the first time somebody has listened to you? They don't know who you are. They don't know what to expect. And so that short, fast introduction assumes that there it could be a cold audience listening to that very podcast for the first time. It's the same reason why when I create a video, I say, "Hi, I'm Megan. I'm a Pinterest marketing expert. I've been an educator in the space for over 10 years, and I'm considered to be a thought leader. And these are some of the things that you should know about me," because it kind of also says, like, "Hey, this is why I'm different. This is what you need to know about me." And if you are brand new to me, and I'd love to know if you're watching live, is this the first time you've heard me teach? How did you find me? And I think that sometimes it's like really strange to me. And I get that if somebody was a longtime subscriber of your podcast, they don't need to hear your intro. But think about this, every single person who clicks on one of your pins and goes to your shop, goes to your blog, goes to your podcast, they've never met you before. So it's just polite so to say, "Hey, I'm Megan. This is who I am." And so whether you're a product-based business, whether you're a service provider, it's just that sort of like warm way to welcome. And here's the thing, people in our audience need to hear our message over and over and over again. You can't assume people are busy. They might not remember who you are. So it almost just seems like it's just good manners to introduce yourself. So it's so funny to me that somebody would say, like, who even listens to them? But for the right person who's new to your audience, assuming that they might not know, and also you're subconsciously planting a little seed about who they are, maybe their brand name, what they do. So the next person, when someone's like, "Hey, do you know any Pinterest experts?" I know someone. Her name is Megan. You should look up Megan Williamson Pinterest marketing, right? She's a Pinterest expert. So I want it to be easy for you to remember who I am. So let's remember, we don't want to create, this is just a little tip about creating your Pinterest boards. We don't want to create a Pinterest board that we're only going to pin to once a year, once every few years, or that only makes sense for a product collection or a service that you offered 4 years ago. You want Pinterest will reward you if you are actively populating your boards. Now, the only exception is if you have a board that's called like Christmas or holiday or Easter. That's very seasonal. Don't worry, you're going to populate it again next year, 5 months before the for the holiday or the event or the season comes up. But I sometimes go to Pinterest accounts and I can see that somebody has not pinned to a board in 5 years. So it kind of tells me you're not an active user on the account. Why would I want to follow you? This is all about the end user's experience as well. So we're not doing every single thing for rank and search and authority. That this is what really good strategy does. It thinks about your end user, it thinks about your ideal audience. So do this. Think about your Pinterest keyword phrases that your audience is searching for. Use Pinterest guided search to help you find their language, not yours. Use keywords in your Pinterest board, in your Pinterest board name and description, and make it easy for Pinterest to scan that board. So avoid things like cutesy or clever names, avoid vague terms or anything that's like an insider language from your company, and emojis. Okay. Don't use those, and don't use hashtags in your board descriptions. I don't know who's teaching that, but don't do that. So don't delete boards. This will come back to bite you. You want to archive or make them secret. You can refresh outdated boards and zhuzh them and put new content and rename them. If you have personal boards on your Pinterest account that no longer align with your business, make them secret if you still want to pin to them, or archive them. This will remove them from your account. I always think it's easier to work with an existing Pinterest account that has a built up presence and some of your business content on it than brand new. Pinterest also prefers older accounts. Now, try to keep your keywords related to your topic, cohesive, have visuals that match your brand. And I'm going to leave it there. I've already been teaching for over 25 minutes. What I do want to tell you is that if today helped you get clearer on what types of boards to create as a business on using Pinterest, I really want to also invite you to take a look at your Pinterest copy, because once you figured out your strategy for your boards and your visuals, you're going to want to really optimize your copy. In the description of the video, I have shared a link to my Pinterest prompts guide. These is AI swipe files that you can use to get better Pinterest output. So it was created for ChatGPT, but you could take it to any of your favorite tools, and this will help you get specific, accurate pin titles, text overlay, and help you to start getting better results on Pinterest. Now, like I said, I'm including that link. If you found this helpful, I'd love for you to comment on the video. I'd love to hear what you would like me to teach about next. I'm trying to go live about once a week, and I'm going to start rolling out pre-recorded videos so they're a little bit tighter. I'm also going to experiment with streaming using software so that I can share my screen. But I just want to thank you for your attention and your support. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to learn next, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye now.